Hello, hello, welcome. Welcome. This is the global community for adults who are healing CPTSD. My name is Athena, and I am going to be facilitating our time together tonight. And if you are new here, I'd like to warmly welcome you to our community. And even if you're not new here, I would like to warmly welcome you and just tell you I am so grateful for your presence. And we are a group of adults who are healing from childhood trauma, repeated relational trauma that began in childhood. And we have all been coming together here about once a week and doing life together for over 10 years. It'll be 11 years in less than a month from today. So, welcome. Welcome to those of you who have been here for the better part of a decade or more, and welcome to those of you who are just finding us. We are so glad you are here with us. Your presence in our community is felt and valued, regardless of your ability to be here with us during our weekly live stream on Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern. If for some reason your time zone doesn't allow for you to be here with us, or perhaps it's a scheduling concern, or whatever it is that prohibits you from being here with us during our live stream, during our weekly discussions, I just want you to know that you're appreciated. The fact that you can even hear my voice right now is so validating to the rest of our growing collective of brave humans who are deciding to heal from things they never ever asked for. So thank you. Thank you for your presence. We are in the middle of going through and discussing Pete Walker's most recent book titled Holistically Treating Complex PTSD, a Six-Dimensional Approach. And I just want to go on record, as I believe I did last week. This is by far the most accessible and relatable and important work that is currently available to the general public on the topic of healing complex PTSD. I know that many of you know that I'm a huge Pete Walker fan. I've read every word he's ever written and made public. And he's a pen and paper mentor of mine. And I've sat under his teaching for 11 years. And I can honestly say that it's all coming back to me, right? When we begin our healing journey and we're really in the midst of it, and we are toggling in between that inner critic and outer critic, and we are vacillating between the anxious presentation and the depressive presentation of CPTSD, and we are passively and actively suicidal on a regular basis because let's just be real, a very real part of healing CPTSD and even enduring repeated relational trauma, the very fact that it is more than the human soul can bear, is by definition what it means to be passively or actively suicidal. Now, as someone, I'm raising my hand. You can't see me, but I'm raising my hand. As someone who has undergone lengthy, multiple day workshops and continuing education on the topic of suicide prevention, and I sat on a suicide prevention task force for over 10 years, I will tell you that everything that Pete Walker talks about when it comes to passive and active suicidal ideation is 100% on point. It is impossible for the human soul to endure repeated relational trauma that is ongoing over a long period of time and not think to themselves, I kind of low-key just don't care if I wake up tomorrow, or how can I end this soon because it's too much, or somewhere in between those two. So if that is you and you have ever been in those places, I just need you to know that you're not alone, first of all, and it's not unheard of. It's more common than everyone talks about, and I realize it's a very taboo topic. A lot of people in the world believe a lot of myths surrounding suicidality. One of the biggest myths that I learned about when I was undergoing training for suicide prevention is that if we talk to others about their thoughts of dying by suicide or completing their suicide attempts, that they will actually lean toward and be more prone to want to die by suicide. And guess what? Totally not true. It's one of the biggest myths. It's one of the biggest myths surrounding suicidality. So if you have stumbled upon a YouTube channel that is made possible by the Foundation for Post-Traumatic Healing and Complex Trauma Research, talking about healing CPTSD, and hosts weekly discussion groups for adults who are healing from repeated relational trauma that was ongoing over a long period of time, I am willing to bet money that I don't have and never will have that you have thought about dying or just not wanting to exist. So I'm telling you right now, with my hand on my heart, I have been there. I have been there. I was there for the better part of a decade. I was there multiple times prior to that. I'm going to be 52 years old this year. And I can honestly say that for the majority of my life, I felt that way. And you know what? One of the only things that's helped me is being in a community of other humans who are choosing to show up for themselves, even if it's just once a week. As often as we choose to show up for ourselves and we talk about the real things, we talk about what's really going on, we talk about the crazy making situations that we find ourselves in with these people who would have us believe that it's not okay to talk about our mental well-being or lack thereof. I'm telling you right now, the only reason that I am no longer today on July 28th, 2025, I'm not today in a place where I am low-key just really not caring if I wake up or not or exist, or wishing that I could simply just not wake up and just make it end, make it stop, please, please, just make it go away. The only reason that I am no longer there right now in this moment, which who knows what tomorrow will bring. Thank you, CPTSD. The only reason is being in a community of other humans, such as yourselves, and every other person at the foundation who are choosing to show up every day. You chose to be here. You chose to get on YouTube. You chose to click a link. You chose to see what time it was. You chose to continue listening to me, even when 5-10 minutes ago, I started talking about people wanting to kill themselves. And you know what? You're the reason this YouTube channel exists. You're the reason I'm alive today. In part, because of you, I am still here talking about really uncomfortable things that no one wants to talk about. Because this community saves lives. Having a date on the calendar, knowing that I'm going to be here every single week, 7 p.m. Eastern, figuring out a way to make my computer not drive me crazy, and hopefully the links work and my internet's working properly, and hopefully YouTube hasn't moved some things around and OBS doesn't decide to quit, and hopefully my computer doesn't need an update and all of that. That's accountability. I'm accountable to this community. And you know what? Everyone away from social media over at the foundation that I check in with on an almost daily basis, they're the reason that I'm still here. People like Pete Walker, who write books talking about what it feels like to pretty much just want to not exist anymore, but oh wait, let's talk about why. It's people like him. It's people like you. It's communities like ours. This is the reason we're still here. Okay? So I'm telling you right now, being a part of a community of others who have a similar lived experience, who are committed to showing up for themselves as often as they can, and talking about the hard stuff, and learning life skills like healthy boundaries, cultivating safe relationships, figuring out how to practice self-care, self-compassion, self-advocacy. This is how we continue on. This is how we heal. This is how we do it. Okay? So thank you. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for choosing to be here. Oh, I never posted the link. Oh, I'm doing that workshop tomorrow over in the community. Here's a link. There's a link in the chat box. There's a link in the description section of the video. Please use, oh wait, where's the code? Hold on. Use code. I was on my soapbox and I didn't do what I was supposed to do. Use code. Whoops. Wait, let me try it again. Use code Monday. Oops, wait. Monday 50. Okay. So I'm doing a workshop tomorrow for the community away from social media. It's on Zoom. There's a link to join the community. There's a code to get 50% off of your first month. It's 50% off of your first month of being in our community. It's $9.99 to be in our community every month, to be connected here, not here on YouTube, but in our community every single day instead of once a week. And with the code, I think it's $4.99 if I'm not mistaken. It might be like $4.98. I have no idea. But the workshop is tomorrow, and it's just included. It's just for our community away from social media. And it's at 3 p.m. Eastern. And, if you can't be there, that's cool. Don't worry about it. Because I'm going to be here next Monday and every Monday. And I'm going to do more workshops. I'm going to do more. I'm going to do as much as I possibly can, because this community is the reason why I didn't decide to die. I think being accountable to other humans and learning life skills and figuring out that I'm not a horrible person for having boundaries, and learning how to cultivate safe relationships, and everything pretty much that Pete Walker teaches in all of his books. I feel like one of the best ways for us to do that is beside other people who are on a similar journey, who have a similar lived experience. And I just have tried to find it elsewhere. I've tried to find it elsewhere. I have one other community that I belong to, not a community that I helped build, like with the foundation, but I have one other community that I found where I feel the way that I feel when I'm here with you. So that's 2 communities that I've been able to locate in all the planet. So I know they exist. I know this isn't the only place, but for me, this is what works, right? We got to find what works for us. So the fact that you're here, oh, there's my chat box. It had disappeared. Now it's back. Amy Natalia. Hi, Amy Natalia. We warmly welcome you. Am I meeting you for the first time? Amy says, when you feel you are not wanted by your family early in life, it is a logical consequence that you wish not to have been born. Also, you find yourself disappointed that leaving didn't solve the problem. Yes. Oh my gosh, yes. Yes, yes, absolutely yes. Wow. That is so poignant and succinct and so relatable. Yes. Jen says, yes, Candida. Oh, I missed what Candida says. For some reason, I can't see what Candida wrote. Brave Vanessa says, I found it with my trauma therapist. I'm so glad, Brave Vanessa. I found it with my trauma therapist too. But being in a community of more than one other human, I don't know, for some reason it just adds that extra layer. It's amazing. Yes, Kate says, Amy Natalia, same. Brave Vanessa says, hi, Amy Natalia. Hello, John Harvey. John Harvey says, I never felt right being around people until I found groups like this one. Always alone, and now I am not. Oh, John Harvey, you are not alone. We love you. We see you. We appreciate you. We value you. We are so grateful for your presence. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you to anybody else who has chatted in the chat box. For some reason, it won't let me page up above Amy Natalia's message. I don't know what the deal is. That's odd, but it's not working. So here we are. We're going to tag right off of what, so last week was great. It was such a tender time together, such a tender group, so impactful, so meaningful. I was debriefing my team after our group and I was in tears of gratitude. So we talked last week about, we had a little bit of psychoeducation around the topic of arrested emotional development. And we also talked about the raging that we experienced if we were raised by narcissistically abusive parents, or if we experienced emotional abuse and emotional neglect and the effects of that. And so tagging on that, we are on page 260 of Pete Walker's most recent book, Holistically Treating Complex PTSD. And on page 260, Pete broaches the topic of the 4 key transformative processes of grieving. And we talked last week about the importance of allowing ourselves to grieve in multiple different ways, not just emoting or crying, but also finding safe enough ways for us to access our anger, finding ways to access communities and safe enough others where we have someone who's able and willing to safely hold space for us to verbally ventilate. And what this does is this allows us to metabolize and fully feel the vast range of our emotions. And it's really, really, really important that we do that, because that's the only way that we shift from experiencing arrested development to shifting into what we are able to accomplish as healthy, individuated, emotionally mature adults. Now, being a healthy, individuated, emotionally mature adult means that we show up in ways that work, and we establish and maintain healthy boundaries. We cultivate relationships that are nourishing. They feel safe enough. They're reciprocal. We enjoy them. They give us a feeling of peace and ease and safe enoughness. We enjoy these relationships, and the people who are in relationship with us enjoy us. Each person involved in the relationship has enough emotional intelligence and emotional development to show up in ways that we are proud of and that work for everyone involved. The opposite of that is someone who has experienced arrested emotional development. And for more on that topic, please listen to the replay of last week's weekly discussion group. It's titled Week 6. And it's just before this video. If you go to the live section of the YouTube channel, and the thumbnail will say week of July 21, 2025. And if you see my corny little picture of me holding Pete's book, it'll say week 6. And if you listen to that video from the beginning all the way to the end, it's a really good precursor to the discussion we'll be having this evening. So Pete talks a lot about the 4 key transformative processes of grieving. Now, he does this in his book called The Tao of Fully Feeling, which is all about grieving, harvesting forgiveness out of grief. And whether or not we subscribe to the idea of forgiveness, I have chosen to apply the word forgiveness to myself, because I'm really hard on myself. Now, this might not apply to you, but for me, and maybe not you, but maybe, people and definitely me, right? I have kept myself on the hook and not forgiven myself for making mistakes in relationships with people I care about, namely my relationship with my son and also my daughter-in-law, and also the relationship I have with myself. Those are the 3 relationships I would say that I'm the hardest on myself about. And why is that? Why am I hard on myself? Well, I'll tell you why. Because when I became a mother, I was 18 years old. I delivered my son premature 3 days after my 19th birthday. I was pregnant with my son almost for my entire 18th year of life. I was a baby having a baby. And guess what? That is no excuse for me being emotionally dysregulated. Now, I'm going to be really hard on myself here for a moment, but I'm doing it for a reason, to make a point. Because part of the 4 key transformative processes of grieving means that we acknowledge, rather than deny, the reality of the impact of something that we wish was different. I'm acknowledging the impact of something that I wish was different. It's literally the definition of grief. Okay? I'm not denying that it happened. I know that it happened, and I know that I'm the one who participated in it, because I was the one pregnant. I was the one who delivered my son. I was the one who was a child having a child. I was the one who was emotionally dysregulated. And even though I read every parenting book I could get my hands on when I was pregnant, and I read every parenting magazine I could get my hands on when I was pregnant, guess what? Reading all the books and all the magazines will not prepare you for having a baby, especially if you are a teenager. You don't even have a fully developed prefrontal cortex yet. You don't have access to the part of your brain that helps you put things in order, make sense, and think your thoughts through. You don't have access to executive functioning, where you can prioritize things that you need to do, from step 1 to step 10. right? So step one would have been regulating myself and taking care of myself, putting my health first, my well-being first, making sure that I felt safe, that I felt like I was well rested and well nourished and hydrated, and that I was participating in gentle movement. And then the moment I became pregnant, it was my job in that moment to not only regulate my emotions and my heartbeat and my nervous system and take care of my body and take vitamins, especially for my fetus, but it was also my job to make sure that that womb was the safest place in the entire world for this tiny little perfect human that I was about ready to give birth to. Right? You read every parenting book and every parenting magazine, and it doesn't prepare you for being emotionally dysregulated because you're still in contact with your toxic, unsupportive, unhelpful, unhinged family of origin, providing no financial support, a dearth of emotional support. And I am telling you that when you are experiencing no financial support and no emotional support, but you're allowing toxic people into your realm while you are with child, you forget to hydrate, you forget to nourish, you forget to rest, you forget to practice gentle movement, you forget to regulate your nervous system. You forget that you're feeling really emotional from all of your hormones and that you should be regulating your nervous system. You should be regulating your emotions so that that tiny little baby that's growing can feel calm and safe and loved and cared for and not doused with adrenaline and cortisol floating through its entire environment, right? So I am sitting here telling you right now that I was the least prepared human with zero blueprint, zero example, zero role model of how to not only be an emotionally regulated human, but how to be a healthy human. I'm the first person in my lineage to exercise and move my body on purpose. First person. I can count on less than one hand how many times I saw 39 other people in my entire family exercise or go for a walk or take care of themselves physically. Less than one hand, 39 people. Okay? So I wish that were different. I wish that I would have been better prepared. I wish that I would have been calm and grounded. I wish that I would have eaten better foods and hydrated more and rested more intentionally. I wish I would have established and maintained healthy boundaries with all of the toxic, unsupportive, unhelpful, unhinged members of my crazy ass family. I wish that I would have provided a calm, soothing, supportive, safe, and nurturing environment for my one and only child, my son. But guess what? I didn't. So I regret that. I grieve that. There's a grieving involved with the harm I caused to a little baby. Right? I need to take responsibility for that. I need to own that impact. And trust me, I have. I've had these conversations with my son. He has told me explicitly, ad nauseum, Mom, I forgive you. You were blindfolded with your hands tied behind your back. You had no clue. Like, seriously. Mom, I forgive you. Mom, I forgive you. Thank you for having this conversation with me, Mom. I know a lot of people in my life that wish that they could have these types of conversations with their parents, but they haven't. Thank you for apologizing. Thank you for taking responsibility. Thank you for being accountable. Thank you for being willing to talk with me about this, but I forgive you. Right? So even though he has been able to thankfully receive my words of self-responsibility and accountability and regret, it doesn't absolve me or take away the pain. I'm just giving you an example of what it looks like to grieve. Because grieving isn't always crying and being angry and verbally ventilating and fully feeling things. Grieving can look different to everyone, particularly if we haven't accepted the reality of what it is that we've even been through. If we are still please don't miss this. If we are still making excuses for the adults in our lives who were dysfunctional, neglectful, abusive, and exploitative, and have refused to take accountability and responsibility for what it is that they've done and the pain that they've caused and the impact on our lives, if we are still making excuses for them and giving them a hall pass, guess what? That makes us emotionally constipated. That keeps us from participating in our grieving process. That keeps us, and to quote Pete Walker, arrested emotionally. That's arrested emotional development. Arrested development, meaning not fully developed. I'm going to say it again, someone needs to hear this. Someone needs me to repeat it. Maybe it's me. If we are still making excuses for and giving a hall pass to the adults who have impacted our lives through dysfunction, neglect, abuse, and exploitation, we are furthering our own arrested emotional development. For more on that topic, please listen to the replay of last week, which is titled Week 6, and it's dated July 21st, 2025. So we can move forward in our healing process and become less developmentally arrested if we will simply accept the reality of the fact that us giving other people a hall pass and making excuses for other people who have flung their dysfunction, neglect, abuse, and exploitation in our direction, we are practicing self-harm. Did you know that? That is self-harm. I'm going to say that again. If we are denying the reality and making excuses for and giving a hall pass to the adults in our lives who have harmed us with their dysfunction, neglect, abuse, and exploitation, we are participating in our own self-harm. And we are keeping ourselves from healing. We are keeping ourselves developmentally arrested. We are harming ourselves. And if we have had the privilege of having young ones entrusted into our care, we are harming them. We can pretend that we're not. We can act like we're not. We can try not to. Oh, but we are. Because young ones, little ones, any one of us here who have littles, guess what? They learn not by hearing, but they learn by watching what we do. Not what we say, but what we do. If we allow ourselves to be verbally and emotionally abused and gaslit and triangulated and spoken to in ways that are dysfunctional or treated neglectfully or abusively or exploited or bullied, if we are continuously allowing ourselves to be treated this way by other adults in front of the littles, we are not only participating in our own self-harm, we are harming these little ones because they are learning that that is the type of behavior that is normal. instead of breaking the cycle of abuse, instead of breaking the cycle of dysfunction, neglect, abuse, and exploitation, we are perpetuating it. Yeah, that hurts. That's painful. That's a bitter pill to swallow. So, part of my grieving process with my son and, as it were, my daughter-in-law, his wife, whom I've known now for, goodness, since 2012, 11. So what is that? 14 years? I can't math. There's no mathing going on in my brain right now. I can't do that. I'm doing words right now. Words exist, mathing is not happening. So in order for me to appropriately grieve the things I wish were different in my relationship with my son, I have to accept the reality of the impact instead of deny it. Not only the impact that I had on his life because I was emotionally dysregulated young teenage mother, but the impact that I allowed other people to have on me. I stayed in contact with toxic, abusive, dysfunctional, neglectful, and exploitative members of my family of origin all the way up until recently. Which means I allowed that to be the norm in my family. Now, did I do a lot to break the cycle? Yes, I did. Do I think that I effectively broke the cycle? I think I have. My son has told me that I have. But do I wish it were different? Do I have a lot to grieve? Yes, I do. I'm accepting the reality of everything I've been through and all the things I allowed in my life. I am no longer denying it because I can't if I'm going to ever heal. And I can't allow myself to collapse under the weight of all of the what ifs or the woulda, shoulda, couldas, because it will absolutely be the end of me and I will find myself back into a cycle of toggling back and forth between passive and active suicidal ideation. There I am, back on the topic that no one wants to talk about, the taboo topic of suicidal ideation. I will collapse under the weight of the woulda, shoulda, couldas if I don't practice self-compassion, if I don't hold gentle space for the parts of me who wish it were all different. I will collapse under the weight of the depressive presentation of complex PTSD, toggling back and forth between the anxious presentation of CPTSD, while I stress about it and stress eat or go between a binge and restrict cycle in the foods that I consume, or over exercise, or not be able to sleep, or just stress myself out to the point where I'm unable to function and unable to sleep, and I can go there, right? Or I can collapse under not being able to get out of bed because I just feel so terrible for all the things that I wish were different. But you know what? You want to know the thing that helps me to not deny and to not collapse under the weight of the depression, and to not collapse under the weight of the woulda, shoulda, couldas, and what helps to not fall into that place of passive and active suicidal ideation. You want to know the one thing, and you know what? It's going to feel scary. It's going to feel scary and it's not going to feel true. But I'm going to tell you right now, the one thing that will help you more than anything is one of the most societally taboo and misunderstood emotions in the world. And that, family, is anger. Anger. Anger will help you practice self-advocacy. Anger will help you create healthy boundaries with toxic people in your family. Anger will feel scary, and there are going to be younger parts of you that believe that if you access your anger and you experience your anger and you feel your anger, that you turn into the scary ones. You're just like them. You've turned into the abusers. But guess what? That's not true. Anger, as long as we are not harming ourselves or another, is absolutely vital in order for us to heal. We must have access to the full range of all of our emotions if we are ever to accept the reality of what it is that we have survived. The dysfunction, the neglect, the abuse, the exploitation, the gaslighting, the bullying, the confusion, the word salad, the blaming, the scapegoating, all of that, you don't deserve it. You never did. And that's it. We're done. We figure out a way to not need to have those people in our lives anymore. That's what we need. We need to find a way to not have those people in our lives anymore. We need to find ways to establish healthy boundaries with anyone who is dysfunctional, neglectful, abusive, or exploitative, so that we can show up in ways that work, ways that are healthy, ways that are supportive, ways that build us up instead of tear us down, ways that help us not fall in to passive and active suicidal ideation. Anger, accessing healthy anger and not harming ourselves and others in the process, is likely going to push you farther into a place of healing than anything else ever will. And you'll have greater access to self-compassion. And caring for yourself and learning life skills like how to care for your relationships and your finances and your health, and cleaning your apartment and leaving the house and not isolating and making friends and possibly meeting up for coffee with people. All of those things happen on the other side of anger. If you haven't felt your anger in ways that aren't harming others or yourself, chances are you're struggling in your relationships. You're struggling to do your dishes. You're struggling to Swiffer your floors or vacuum them. You're struggling to do your laundry. You're struggling to have enough money in your bank account or not spend it in weird ways. You're struggling to connect with other humans. You're struggling with isolation. You're struggling with hygiene. You're struggling with taking care of your vehicle if you have one, your yard if you have one, your pets if you have them. If you haven't accessed your anger, all those things, they feel like they're going to consume you. They're going to overwhelm you. Let's read what Pete Walker says about the 4 key transformative processes of grieving. Okay? Because this right here, coupled with what we talked about last week, which was arrested emotional development, meaning that we show up in relationships in ways that we wish we wouldn't, in ways that don't work, ways that we're embarrassed about, we're ashamed of. That's what arrested emotional development means. It means we don't know how to human. Peopling is hard. Adulting is hard. Taking care of money is hard. Going to work is hard. Having colleagues is hard. Having a partner is hard. Taking care of our kids is hard. Our pets, our dishes, our floors, our laundry, our car, our yard. Leaving the house is hard. So let's hear what Pete Walker has to say on page 260 about the 4 key transformative processes of grieving. He says, "It is important to restate here that trauma-informed cognitive behavioral therapy, a leading trauma approach today, often dismisses the crucial emotional recovery tool of grieving the losses of childhood. The ability to effectively grieve is as key to emotional intelligence as is the reawakening and development of the instinctual feelings of self-compassion and self-protectiveness. To achieve ample trauma recovery, adult survivors must grieve the near deaths, the developmental arrests of many essential aspects of their being. In fact, whether one was traumatized in childhood or not, grieving is a key life skill for navigating normal and recurring hindrances, injuries, and setbacks, many of which feel like a death when they occur. Everyone with the ability to grieve effectively is invariably a healthier and more adaptable human being. Everyone has their own death-like experiences to grieve in life, whether those be the death of a loved one or the death of a relationship, a valued job, a preferred activity, a state of good health, or a feeling of safety. Grieving is nature's way of helping us to navigate and survive especially stressful ordeals. Moreover, therapists help survivors immeasurably when they guide them to grieve through the death of their self-esteem during emotional flashbacks. I'm going to read that sentence again. Therapists help survivors immeasurably when they guide them to grieve through the death of their self-esteem during emotional flashbacks. The excruciating experiences of fear, toxic shame, and helpless hopelessness can then be grieved through when they are understood as temporary deaths of feeling safe and supported. I'm going to read that sentence again. The excruciating experiences of fear, toxic shame, and helpless hopelessness can then be grieved through when they are understood as temporary deaths of feeling safe and supported. That's at the top of page 261. Pete continues. He says, emotional intelligence develops and evolves in therapy as survivors increasing access practice these 4 individual grieving processes. Process number 1, crying, to release feelings of pain, fear, and hopelessness. Number 2, angering, to release feelings of helplessness and to restore a feeling of safety. 3, verbally ventilating, to work through overwhelming states and experiences with a supportive other. And 4, fully feeling and merging with the sensations of emotional pain in a way that integrates them and restores autonomic nervous system balance. So I'm going to pause right now, and I want to invite you to contemplate, when was the last time you were able to cry? Just please, this is just an invitation, not an expectation, okay? Everything that I share here on this channel, as you know, is an invitation, not an expectation. So I'm just going to invite you gently to consider these questions. And if it feels safe, you can chat in the chat box about it. And if not, that's okay too. Jot it down somewhere or come back to the replay of this. We are at 50 minutes. You can fast forward to 50. Okay? Here are 4 gentle invitations. Call them journal prompts if you want. Number 1. When was the last time you were able to cry? You allowed yourself to cry to release feelings of pain, fear, and hopelessness as it relates to your own healing journey of CPTSD. Number 2, when was the last time you gave yourself permission to experience anger in a way that did not harm you or another, as a means of releasing feelings of helplessness and to restore a feeling of safety? Number 3, when was the last time you can remember verbally ventilating with a safe enough other for the purposes of working through your feelings of overwhelm as it relates to your healing of CPTSD? And lastly, when was the last time you can remember fully feeling and merging with the sensations of emotional pain in a way that integrates them and supports your nervous system? I feel like Pete has given us a lot to think about this week. We have a lot to be angry about. We have had, if we're here in this community, on this YouTube channel, healing CPTSD, we have a lot to be angry about. Particularly if our trauma began in early childhood. We have experienced immeasurable amounts of dysfunction, neglect, abuse, and even exploitation. And with my hand on my heart, I just want to invite you to gently glance at the possibility that when Pete Walker says that grieving is transformative and necessary, I don't know about you, but if he says something, I'm going to listen. Because this dude has been healing his own CPTSD for so many decades, and he literally shares his whole entire process with us. Because he's generous like that. Right? And if he says that crying and angering and verbally ventilating and fully feeling are transformative processes, and they are the 4 key transformative processes, well, I'm going to take note of that. He didn't only mention it, but he numbered it. And he made it its very own section in the entire book. There's literally an entire section labeled 4 key transformative processes of grieving. And this book, the book you see up on the screen right now, is, and I will say it again, I said it earlier, the most accessible, effective, helpful, and supportive resource that any person in our entire community could get their hands on in 2025. If they read no other book on the topic of healing CPTSD, I truly hope they will read this one. This is the book I wish I would have found when I first started having memories. This is the book I wish I would have found before I entered a toxic and abusive relationship that was dysfunctional and neglectful and exploitative. This is the book that I wish I would have had when I was just a teenager, figuring out how I was going to spend my entire 18th year on planet Earth carrying around a little tiny human that was growing in my womb and then giving birth to him 3 days after my 19th birthday. Do you know how different my son's life would have been if I would have read this book? Do you know that all the harm that I caused with my own emotional dysregulation and my lack of boundaries and the ignorance that I had about cultivating safe relationships? Do you know how much harm I could have prevented? This is the book that I wish teenager Athena, little pregnant teenage Athena, would have had. Because in addition to every book on pregnancy, like What to Expect When You're Expecting and all the other pregnancy magazines, I even had a pregnancy, a maternity bathing suit that my grandma bought me in a JCPenney catalog. It was black polka dots and it had a pink bow on the back. I wish I could have worn my little black and white polka dot bathing suit with the pink bow on the back and went to the swimming pool in my apartment complex while I was pregnant. 18, pregnant, black and white polka dots. I wish I would have been poolside reading this book right here. That's what I wish. Because I guarantee you, I would have been more emotionally regulated. I would have been more appropriate. I would have been more boundaried. I would have done it so different. And that is what I am grieving right now. So what are you grieving? What are you choosing to grieve? What are you choosing to pause and acknowledge? What will you sit with and glance at and hold space for? What will you allow and hold tender care for? What will you validate and hold closely and be gentle with? What will you acknowledge and accept the reality of instead of denying it? I thank you. I thank each of you for being here. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for your warmth and your kindness. I hope I see you tomorrow at the workshop. If not, that's okay. I'm going to have a gazillion more. Here's a link to join our community if you're interested. And if not, that's okay. I'll be back here next Monday and every Monday. I am so grateful for each of you. I'm grateful for your presence. Thank you for your kindness. Please be extra kind and patient and gentle with yourselves, as Jeffrey would say, because you are worth it. And I appreciate you so much. I look forward to seeing you soon. Good night, everyone.